the living world. Unit 1, Diversity in the living world. Biology is the science of life forms and life processes. The living world comprises an amazing diversity of living organisms. Early man could easily perceive the difference between inanimate, non-moving or non-living matter and the living organisms. Early man defined some of the inanimate matter, wind, sea, fire, etc., and some among the animals and plant. A common feature of all such life forms of inanimate and animate objects was a sense of awe or fear that they evoked. The description of living organisms, including human beings, began much later in the human history. Societies which indulged in anthropocentric view of biology could register limited progress in biological knowledge. Systematic and monumental description of life forms brought in, out of necessity, detailed systems of identification, nomenclature, and classification. The biggest spin-off of such studies was a recognition or sharing of similarities among living organisms, both horizontally and vertically. That all present-day living organisms are related to each other and also to all organisms that ever lived on this earth was a revelation which humbled man and led to cultural movements for conservation of biodiversity. In the following chapters of this unit, you will get a description including classification of animals and plants from a taxonomist perspective. Let's read it again. Biology is the science of life forms and living processes. The living world comprises an amazing diversity of living organisms. Early man could easily perceive the difference between inanimate matter and living organism. Early man defined some of the inanimate matter, which is, we can see wind, sea, fire. He defined some of these inanimate or non-living objects and some among the animals and plants. He understood some of the non-living matter as well as some of the living organisms. A common feature of all such forms of inanimate and animate objects was a sense of awe or fear that they evoked. If you see an apple, you like to eat it. If you see a lion, you will run from it. That is the sense of awe or interest or fear which you will be made to run from. The description of living organisms, including human beings, began much later in human history. The humans or us described and defined other objects first, but the human definition of human itself came much later, where the man evolved much more or understood much more. Societies which included in anthropocentric view of biology could register limited progress in biological knowledge. Systematic and monumental description of life forms brought in, out of necessity, detailed systems of identification, nomenclature, and classification. That classification is what the basic of taxonomy, which we are going to learn in this chapter. The biggest spin-off of such studies was the recognition of the sharing of similarities among living organisms, both horizontally and vertically. Many organisms share similarities or characteristics which are shared across many organisms is what we call a similarity. All present-day living organisms are related to each other and also to all organisms that ever lived on earth. It was a revelation which humbled man and led to cultural movements for conservation of biodiversity. All living organism came from inorganic matter, so all living organisms on earth are technically related, even though very less. So which is what they are saying is this revelation or this statement or this truth that all the living organisms are related humbled the man and led to cultural movements for conservation of biodiversity. In the following chapter is there are 4 chapters in this unit. One is the living world, biological classification, plant kingdom, and animal kingdom. For now, in this video, I will be doing living world. Ernst Mayr, I'll just read this. Born on 5 July 1904 in Kempten, Germany, Ernst Mayr, the Harvard University evolutionary biologist who has been called the Darwin of the 20th century, was one of the 100 greatest scientists of all time. Mayr joined Harvard's Faculty of Arts and Science in 1953 and retired in 1975, assuming the title Alexander Agassiz Professor of Zoology Emeritus. Throughout his nearly 8-year career, his research spanned ornithology, birds, taxonomy, zoo geography, evolution, systematics, and the history and philosophy of biology. He almost single-handedly made the origin of species diversity the central question of evolutionary biology that it is today. He also pioneered the currently accepted definition of a biological species. Mayr was awarded 3 prizes, widely regarded as the Triple Crown of Biology: the Balzan Prize in 1983, the International Prize for Biology in 1994, and the Crawford Prize in 1999. Mayr died at the age of 100 in the year 2004. Let's start the main chapter. Chapter 1, the living world. Topics being diversity in the living world and taxonomic categories. How wonderful is the living world? The wide range of living types is amazing. The extraordinary habitats in which we find living organisms, be it cold mountains, deciduous forests, oceans, freshwater lakes, deserts, or hot springs, leave us speechless. The beauty of a galloping horse, of the migrating birds, the valley of flowers, or the attacking shark evokes awe and deep sense of wonder along with fear. The ecological conflict and cooperation among members of a population and among populations of a community, or even the molecular traffic inside a cell, makes us deeply reflect on what indeed is life. This question has 2 implicit questions within it. The first is a technical one and seeks an answer to what living is as opposed to the non-living. And the second is the philosophical one and seeks answer to what purpose of life is. As scientists, we shall not attempt answering the second question. We will try to reflect on what is living. In life or about life, we have 2 questions. What is life or what is living? And the second one is what is the purpose of living? The second one is the philosophical question. In the first question, as to what is life, the first category, we can define life. Our first way is to compare living organisms with non-living or inanimate objects. This is the first category which we have found a way to define the living world. Or through which we can define the living world. Let's start with the first main topic, diversity in the living world. If you look around you, you will see a large variety of living organisms, be it potted plants, insects, birds, your pets, or other animals and plants. There are also several organisms that you cannot see with your naked eye, but they are all around you. If you were to increase the area that you make observations in, the range and variety of organisms that you see would increase. Obviously, if you were to visit a dense forest, you would probably see a much greater number and kinds of living organisms. Each different kind of living plant, animal, or organisms that you see represents a species. The number of species that are known and described range between 1.7 to 1.8 million, is 17 to 18 lakhs. This refers to biodiversity, or the number and types of organisms present on Earth. We should remember here that as we explore new areas and even old ones, new organisms are continuously being identified. As we see around us, as the area of our perspective or range increases, if we see in a forest, we see a certain number of organisms. As we increase our range to an entire country, or increase it further to the entire continent of Africa or Asia or any other continent in that matter, we see as we increase the area, the diversity or biodiversity keeps on increasing. And up to today, the total number of species identified is around 1.7 to 1.8 million. And as we explore new areas or even old ones, new organisms, new species are continuously being found out. As stated earlier, there are millions of plants and animals in the world. We know the plants and animals in our own area by their local names. These local names would vary from place to place. Even within a country, probably you would recognize the confusion that would be created if we did not find ways and means to talk to each other, to refer to organisms we are talking about. Common names, it might be due to various languages, due to various nicknames, or due to in various isolated places they can refer to various names according to them. This will lead to so much confusion. Even though you are talking about the same organism, you might not understand it's the same organism because the names, the local names more specifically, are different in different areas. Hence, there came a need to standardize the naming of living organisms such that a particular organism is known by the same name all over the world. This process is what we call nomenclature. To redefine nomenclature, to standardize the need to standardize the naming of living organisms of a particular naming an organism is what we call nomenclature, and when we should standardize this name all over the world so that there is no confusion. Obviously, nomenclature or naming is only possible when the organism is described correctly and we know to what organism the name is attached to. This is identification. First, even if you name a specific object or anything of the matter, if you name something cat, how do you know which is a cat? Even if you have a name cat, you wouldn't know what organism you should call a cat. So you should first identify this organism. That is what we call identification. In order to facilitate the study, number of scientists have established procedures to assign a scientific name to each known organism. This is acceptable to biologists all over the world. For plants, scientific names are based on agreed principles and criteria. Which are provided in International Code for Botanical Nomenclature (ICBN). You may ask, how are animals named? Animal taxonomists have evolved International Code of Zoological Nomenclature (ICZN). The scientific names ensure that each organism has only one name. Avoid confusion. Description of any organism should enable the people in any part of the world to arrive at the same name. They also ensure that such a name has not been used for any other known organism. Biologists follow universally accepted principles to provide scientific names to known organisms. Each name has two components, the generic name and the specific epithet. Generic name being the genus name and specific epithet being the species name. This system of providing a name with two components or two terms is what we call binomial nomenclature. Nomenclature is the naming of organisms, whereas binomial being two terms. This naming system, given by Carolus Linnaeus, is being practiced by biologists all over the world even now. This naming system using a two-word format was found very convenient. Let us take the example of mango to understand the way of providing scientific names better. The scientific name of mango is written as Mangifera indica. Let us see how it is a binomial name. In this name, Mangifera represents a genus, while indica is a particular species. Mangifera is the genus name, whereas the indica is a specific or the species name. Specific epithet. Other universal rules of nomenclature are as follows. The rules for this binomial nomenclature being, the first rule, biological names are generally in Latin and are written in italics. They are Latinized or derived from Latin irrespective of their origin. No matter the country which found the new species, the name will always be derived from Latin, and if written, it will be written in italics. If handwritten, it should be underlined. If typed, it should be written in italics. The first word in a biological name represents the genus. The second component denotes the specific epithet. Rules of binomial nomenclature. The first rule: biological names are generally in Latin and written in italics. They are Latinized or derived from Latin irrespective of their origin. The first word in the biological nomenclature, or name, represents the genus, while the second component denotes a specific epithet. Both of the words in a biological name, when handwritten, are separately underlined or printed in italics to indicate their Latin origin. To say that they are Latin derived or Latin origin, they are either print when typed, they are typed in italics or printed in italics. If written, handwritten, they are underlined. The fourth rule: the first word denoting the genus starts with a capital letter, while the specific epithet starts with a small letter. It can be illustrated with the example of Mangifera indica. Here, Mangifera indica is typed in italics, and the right way is capital M, Mangifera, M is capital, whereas indica, I is small. Should be written sidewise, but I didn't have space, so I wrote down. Name of the author appears after the specific epithet, that is, at the end of the biological name, and is written in the abbreviated form. Example: Mangifera indica Linn. Author meaning the person who named the species or organism. It indicates that, and the name is not written fully, but after the specific epithet, it is written in an abbreviated form, where Mangifera indica Linn, Linn meaning Carolus Linnaeus, and Linn is the abbreviated form. It indicates that this species was first discovered by Linnaeus. Since it is nearly impossible to study all living organisms, it is necessary to devise some means to make this possible. This process is called classification. Nomenclature is the naming of organisms. Identification is the identifying or understanding or differentiating that organisms from other organisms. And classification is a process which we study all living, because we can't study every single organisms and every single species, we make it into categories. That is what we call classifying, or making into categories is what we call making into categories of various species which we found is what we call classification. As I said here, classification is the process by which anything is grouped or categorized into convenient categories based on some easily observable characters. For example, we can easily recognize groups such as plants or animals, or dogs or cats or insects. The moment we use any type of these terms, we associate certain characters with the organisms in that group. What image do you see when you think of a dog? Obviously, each one of us will see a dog and not cat. Now, if you were to think of Alsatians, we know that we are talking about. Similarly, Alsatians, actually it's not Alsatians. Similarly, suppose you were to say mammals, you would of course think of animals with external ears and body hair. Likewise, in plants, we try to talk of wheat. The picture in each of our minds will be of wheat plants, not of rice or any other plant. Hence, all these dogs, cats, mammals, wheat, rice, plants, animals, etc. are convenient categories we use to study organisms. Under animals, you can study various number of organisms. Under plants is the same. So these plants or animals which we group which we named as two categories, which we can name as two categories, under which we can study various organisms much more easily. instead of naming every single 1.7 million species as a single type of organism, we can derive them under animals, plants, fungus, monera or bacteria, or protozoans. The scientific term for these categories is taxa. Category, that's right. Here you must recognize that taxa indicate categories at very different level. Plants also form a taxa, wheat is also a taxa. Similarly, animals, mammals, dogs are all taxa, but you know that dog is a mammal and mammals are animals. Therefore, animals, mammals, dogs represent the taxa at different level. Any kind of category, it might be the top, which we can write as the mammal, and under which we have many kind of categories depending on genera, species like wolves, dogs, cats, humans. Under mammals we have various taxa, which is categories, where for this example mammal is the highest category and followed up by various other categories. Hence, based on characteristics, all living organisms can be classified into different taxa. This process of classification is called taxonomy. Classification is the grouping or categorization of all the organisms to study them easily, whereas the process of classifying the organisms into various taxa or individual category is what we call taxonomy. External and internal structure along with structure of cell, development, process and ecological information of organisms are essential and form the basis of modern taxonomic studies. How we classify this organisms, it depends on external morphology, external and internal external structure is morphology, internal structure is anatomy. It depends on the morphology and anatomy along with the structure of the individual cell, development processes, how the animal develops, ecological information of organisms. These all are necessary or essential and form the basis of modern taxonomic studies. Hence, characterization, identification, classification and nomenclature are the processes that are basic to taxonomy. The basics are characterization, the individual characters we find out, identification, identifying it from various different organisms, classification, grouping it, and of course followed by nomenclature. These processes are the basic to taxonomy. The first being characterization, followed by identification, classification, and nomenclature. Taxonomy is not something new. It's not something we in the modern era have found out. It has been, even if not realized, has been coming from the ancient days or the olden days itself. Human beings have always been interested in knowing more and more about the various kinds of organisms, particularly with reference to their own use or used in daily use, such as cattle, dogs, sheep, goat, etc., which were used in the olden days or were helpful to the humans. In early days, human beings needed to find sources for their basic needs of food, clothing, and shelter. Hence, the earliest classification were based on the uses of various organisms. Human beings were, since long, not only interested in knowing more about different kinds of organisms and their diversities, but also the relationships among them. This branch of study was referred to as systematics. The word systematics is derived from the Latin word systema, which means systematic arrangement of organisms. The evolutionary relationship systematics is basically the how how a wolf is related to a dog or other similar species are related to each other. This branch is what we call systematics, and systematics depends on or is a basis of evolutionary relationships. Linnaeus used Systema Naturae as the title of his publication. The scope of systematics was later enlarged to include identification, nomenclature, and classification. Systematics takes into account evolutionary relationships between organisms. Carolus Linnaeus was not only the one to give the nomenclature or the binomial nomenclature to be more specific, but also gave a specific book called Systema Naturae as it's a book of his. The scope or which systematics will include both identification, nomenclature, and classification. Taxonomy included characterization, identification, classification, nomenclature. This was what taxonomy depended on, and now systematics also depends on identification, nomenclature of organisms, and classifying the organisms. The next main topic is taxonomic categories. Classification is not a single step process but involves hierarchy of steps in which each step represents a rank or category. Classification is not a single step process but involves hierarchy of steps in which each step represents a rank or category. As we saw an example before, under mammals, where mammals is a step, under this step we see cats, dogs. These all are individual steps which come under the high step, or in this example the top step is the mammal category, which we can also call as a rank or a category. Since the category is a part of overall taxonomic arrangement, it is called a taxonomic category, and all categories together constitute the taxonomic hierarchy. Each category, referred to as a unit of classification, in fact represents a rank and is commonly termed as taxon. Taxa is group or categories where taxon is a single individual category. Taxonomy is based on characteristics, all living beings or organisms being classified into different taxa. This classification is what we call taxonomy. Based on characteristics, all living organisms can be classified into different taxa. This process of classification is what we call taxonomy. Classification is not a single step process but involves hierarchy of steps in which each step represents a rank or category. Since the category is a part of overall taxonomic arrangement, it is called taxonomic category. The rank or category which we see is called the taxonomic category, and when all the categories are grouped together, which is what we call the taxonomic hierarchy. Each category referred to as a unit of classification, in fact, or represents a rank, and this rank is termed as taxon. Taxa is plural, whereas taxon is singular, both referring to or both meaning being category. Taxonomic categories and hierarchy can be illustrated by an example. Insects represent a group of organisms sharing common features like 3 pairs of jointed legs. It means insects are recognizable, concrete objects which can be classified. Let's read the statement again. Taxonomic categories and hierarchy can be illustrated by an example. Insect represent a group of organisms sharing common features like 3 pairs of jointed legs. This common feature in the insects, it makes insects objects or living organisms which we can classify because they share similar characteristics, and thus we were given a rank or category. In this example, we can take the characteristics that all the organisms which have 3 pairs of jointed legs under the group of insects. Then this insect, based on the characteristic that the individuals should have 3 pairs of jointed legs, will become a rank or category. This is the basis or example for how a rank is formed. Under a rank or category, all the individuals have similar characteristics, which is why they come into that rank or category. Or most of the organisms having similar characteristics form a rank. 2 ways to define a rank or a taxon. Can you name other such groups of organisms? Remember, groups represents a category. Category further denotes rank. Means group is a category is nothing but the rank. Each rank or taxon, in fact, represents a unit of classification. Group, category, rank, all is nothing but a unit of classification. These taxonomic groups, categories, are distinct biological entities and are not merely morphological aggregate. Statement to be remembered: these taxonomic groups, categories, are distinct biological entities and not merely morphological aggregate. I believe the meaning is that just we do not classify organisms under a group not merely based on physical or morphological aggregates, and it is termed as a distinct biological entity. Taxonomical studies of all known organisms have led to the development of common categories such as kingdom, phylum or division for plants, class, order, family, genus and species. The common categories which we can rank various groups or categories, taxon, these taxons with the highest taxon being the kingdom. Kingdom is the highest category or highest rank under taxonomy, followed by phylum in animals. This both represent the same rank, but different name in animals and plants. Division in plants, followed by class, followed by order. Mammalia is a class. Primata is an order. Family. Solanaceae is a family, the potato family. Family followed by genus, followed by the smallest unit, the species. Kingdom, phylum or division, followed by class, order, family, genus and species. All organisms, including those in the plant and animal kingdoms, have species as the lowest category. Now, the question you may ask is how to place an organism in various categories. A basic requirement is a knowledge of characters of an individual or group of organisms. This helps in identifying similarities and dissimilarities among the individuals with the same kind of organism as well as the other kind of organism. As I said before, taxonomy depends on the characteristics, identification of the characteristics and identification of the similarities. That is how you group all the animals or all the organisms, all the living organisms under a taxon or a category. All the species, if we take a specific species of indica, that species of organisms will mostly be having high similarities. Let's study about the lowest category, which is species. Taxonomic studies consider a group of individual organisms with fundamental similarities as a species. Definition of species is a group of individual organisms with fundamental similarities is what we call a species. Group of organisms which are very similar is what we call a species. One should be able to distinguish one species from the other closely related species based on the distinct morphological differences. There might be morphological, genetical and various differences, but here they gave us that one species we can differentiate easily from other species merely based on morphology itself. As we can directly say, a wolf is different from a dog, seeing the morphology or the physical structure itself. Let us consider Mangifera indica, Solanum tuberosum, potato, Panthera leo, lion. All the three names, indica, tuberosum and leo, represent the specific epithets, while the first words, Mangifera, Solanum and Panthera, are genera and represent another higher level of taxon or category. Each genus may have one or more than one specific epithet representing different organisms but having morphological similarities. They are defining genera here. Each genus may have a single or many species under it. As species is the lower category, genus is the second lowest category. This category may contain a single or many kind of species under it. Panthera, for example, if we take Panthera leo, which is lion, Panthera is a genera, Leo is one of the species. If we take Panthera tigris, then tigris is another species under the Panthera genera. So Panthera for now has two species, which is just an example, but Leo and tigris, it may have more, it has more, but we can say genera contains more than one or more than one species under it. Panthera has another specific epithet called tigris, and Solanum tuberosum. We can also include Solanum nigrum, which is nothing but the brinjal, and Melongena. Human beings belong to the species which is grouped in the genus Homo. The specific name thus for human being is written as Homo sapiens. Homo is the genera, sapien is the specific epithet. The second lowest category is the genus. Genus comprises a group of related species which has more characters in common in comparison of other species of other genera. We can say that genera are aggregates of closely related species. For example, potato, brinjal are two different species, but the genus of Solanum. Lion, Panthera leo, leopard, Panthera pardus, and tiger, Panthera tigris, with several common features, are all species of the genus Panthera. This genus differentiates from another genus of Felis, which includes cats. The definition of genus or genera is a group of closely related species having high morphological similarities is what we call a genera or genus. This category having closely related species is what we call a genera or genus. Family, the next category, which is above the genus. Species, genus, then comes the family. If we go in an ascending order, as we climb the steps. The next category, family, has a group of related genera with still less number of similarities as compared to genus and species. We can say that family can be defined as closely related genera. A group of closely related genera is what we call a genus, a family. As we go from the lower step, species, to the higher genus, family, order, class, we see that similarities are reducing. So we can say that as the category, higher category, or higher category meaning we can take order, class, family, kingdom, higher the category, lower the similarities. That is why they gave family has a group of related genera with still less number of similarities as compared to families compared to genus and species. Families are categorized on the basis of both vegetative and reproductive features of plant species. Vegetative meaning body and reproductive meaning for reproduction related characteristics. Among plants, for example, three different types of genera, Solanum, Petunia, and Datura, are placed in the family of Solanaceae. Solanum, Petunia, and Datura. These are all genera of Solanum, Petunia, and Datura under the Solanaceae family, which you often refer to as a potato family, but it doesn't mean it only includes the potato. Among the animals, for example, genus Panthera, comprising lion, tiger, leopard, is put along with genus Felis. The binomial name or nomenclature for cat is Felis catus. This is a generic binomial name for the cat. So where here Felis is the generic name or a genus, where catus is a species name. Here genus Panthera, which contains lion, tiger, leopard, is put along with both genus Panthera and genus Felis, which is a cats genera, is placed under the family of Felidae. Felidae comprises both the genus of Panthera and Felis. Similarly, if you observe the features of cats and a dog, you will find some similarities and some differences as well. They are separated into two different families, where the Felidae is a family of cats or tigers, and Canidae is the family of dogs or wolves. The next category is the order. We have seen earlier that categories like species, genus, and families are based on number of similar characteristics. Generally, order and other higher taxonomic categories are identified based on aggregates of characters. Where we saw the low categories like family, genus, and species were mainly classified on similar characteristics. Here as well, it is based on aggregates of characters as well, but as the similarities keep decreasing, it is not specifically mentioned, but it is mentioned that it depends on higher taxonomic categories are identified based on the aggregates of characters or groups or similarities in characters. Order, being a higher category, is an assemblage of families which exhibit a few similar characters. We defined a species as a group of individual organisms having the highest similarities, a genus as a group of species, a family as a group of genera, and now we define order as a group of families. The same goes for class, which is defined as a group of orders with similarities, and the same for phylum and the kingdom. But as I said before, higher the category, lower the similarity. The similar characters are less number as compared to different genera included in a family. Plant families like Convolvulaceae, Solanaceae are included in the order Polemoniales, mainly based on the floral characters. Convolvulaceae and Solanaceae families comes under Polemoniales order, which is based on floral character. The animal order Carnivora includes families like Felidae and Canidae. Carnivora is an order and it includes the families of Felidae and Canidae. Class, this category includes related orders, for example, order Primata, comprising of monkey, gorilla, and gibbon, is placed in class Mammalia, along with order Carnivora, that includes animal like tiger, cat, dog. Class Mammalia has other orders also. The second highest category, phylum in animals or division in plants. Classes comprising animals like fishes, amphibians, reptiles, birds, along with mammal, constitute the next higher category called phylum. These are the fishes, the class of species which we call the superclass species. Amphibians the same, reptilia for the reptiles, and aves, the class of aves for the birds, and class Mammalia as we saw here for the mammals. And as for higher information, in other chapter, in the fourth chapter, it is fishes is the superclass species, amphibians, reptilia, birds along with mammals come under the superclass tetrapoda, having 4 legs or limbs, 4 limbs. Let's read the statement again. Phylum, classes comprising animals like fishes, amphibians, reptiles, birds along with mammals constitute the next higher category called phylum. All these based on common features like presence of notochord, dorsal hollow neural system are included in the phylum Chordata. Chordata is a phylum, and under this there are various classes. In case of plants, classes with a few similar characters are assigned to a higher category called division. Kingdom, the highest taxonomic category. This is the ascending order here, what they showed here. Species ascending to genus, ascending to family, ascending to order, ascending to class, ascending to phylum, ascending to kingdom. All animals belonging to various phyla being the plural form of phylum, are assigned to the highest category called kingdom Animalia. In the classification system of animals, the kingdom Plantae, on the other hand, is distinct and comprises all plants from various divisions. Henceforth, we will refer to these two groups as the animal and the plant kingdoms. The taxonomic categories from species to kingdom have been shown in ascending order, starting with species. This chart here, these are broad categories. As these are broad categories, they contain many organisms, thousands of organisms. The number of organisms keeps on increasing as we ascend this ladder. However, taxonomists have also developed subcategories in this hierarchy to facilitate more sound and scientific placement of various taxa. Look at the hierarchy in figure 1.1. Can you recall the basis of arrangement? Say, for example, as we go higher from species to kingdom, the number of common characteristics goes on decreasing. Lower the taxa, more are the characteristics that the members within the taxon share. Higher the category, greater is the difficulty of determining the relationship to other taxa at the same level. Hence, the problem of classification becomes more complex. As we go or ascend the ladder here, the number of similarities keeps on decreasing. Because of such a reason, we can't easily devise relationships, as if you have studied about the similarities can be homologous and analogous as well. If homologous, they do have a relationship, but analogous, they perform the same function, the organs or any features, but they have the same function, but they are completely different. As such, even the characteristics, if there are really high common characteristics, we can decide or determine that it has a relationship. But as the number of similarities decrease, we are not able to classify if that comes under a specific category or not. As they say, the problem of classification becomes more complex. This is a table of where the common names of man, the biological name is Homo sapien, the genus is Homo, family Hominidae, order Primata, class Mammalia, the phylum Chordata. Housefly is a second common name, which is biological name is Musca domestica, the genus is the Musca, family is Mucidae, order is Diptera, class Insecta, and phylum Arthropoda. Mango is the common name, biological name is Mangifera indica, genus is Mangifera, family is Anacardiaceae, order is Sapindales, class is Dicotyledone, phylum is division is Angiospermae. Wheat, biological name Triticum aestivum, genus is Triticum, family is Poaceae, order is Poales, class is Monocotyledone, division is Angiosperma. Let's do a quick reread. Homo sapiens, genus Homo, the man, genus Homo, family Hominidae, order comes under the Primata, which consists of apes, monkeys, chimpanzees, along with us, the humans. The class comes under Mammalia. Then this Mammalia class comes under Chordata, meaning the organisms under Chordata have a notochord. And housefly, genus Musca, family Mucidae, order is Diptera, meaning two wings. Class comes under the Insecta, and phylum Arthropoda, meaning jointed appendages. Arthro meaning jointed, poda meaning appendages, limbs, legs, etc. Mangifera indica. Mangifera is the genus, indica is the species, family is the Anacardiaceae family, order is under the Sapindales, class is Dicotyledone, has two cotyledons, Angiospermae, flowering plants. Triticum aestivum. Triticum is the genus, Poaceae is the family, Poales is the order, Monocotyledone meaning have single cotyledon, Angiospermae, fruit bearing or flowering plants. That finishes the chapter, and we have a summary here which I will indeed do or read. The living world is rich in variety. Millions of plants and animals have been identified and described, but a large number still remains unknown. The very range of organisms in terms of size, color, habitat actually, physiological and morphological features make us seek the defining characteristics of living organisms. In order to facilitate the study of kinds and diversity of organisms, biologists have evolved certain rules and principles for identification, nomenclature, and classification of organisms. The branch of knowledge dealing with these aspects is referred to as taxonomy. The taxonomic studies of various species of plants and animals are useful in agriculture, forestry, industry, and in general for knowing our bioresources and their diversity. The basics of taxonomy, like identification, naming, and classification of organisms, are universally evolved international codes based on the resemblances and distinct differences Each organism is identified and assigned a current scientific biological name comprising the two words as per the biological system of nomenclature. An organism represents slash occupies a place or position in the system of classification. There are many categories, ranks, which are generally referred to as taxonomic categories or taxa. All the categories constitute a taxonomic hierarchy. With this, living world of biology, revision 1 of NCERT is completed. Thank you. See you later.